California just heard something it is not used to hearing from one of its most loyal brands. The leader of In-N-Out finally said out loud what many business owners have been thinking. Raising a family here is not easy. Doing business here is not easy. And now, even a company built into the state's identity is putting real distance between its leadership and the place that made it famous. I am Elizabeth Davis, and you are watching Elizabeth Davis. If you value calm, serious reporting, take a moment now to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Your support helps this channel stay independent and focused on facts. This is the only official channel. Many people are copying my content, my face, my style, but this is the original source. Tonight, we are not chasing rumors. We are tracking what was actually said, what was actually built, and what this moment signals about California's economic direction. Because when an icon feels forced to explain itself, it is never only about burgers. For decades, In-N-Out was treated as the exception. While other companies packed up for cheaper states, this family business stayed planted in California soil. It resisted investors. It resisted franchising. It resisted the pressure to become just another national chain. That is why the latest message hit differently. The company's chief executive did not announce a full exit. She did not say the brand is abandoning California. But she did acknowledge the strain in a way that sounded personal and structural at the same time. California has great things, she said, but raising a family is hard here. Running a business is hard here. Those lines landed like a warning flare. Because In-N-Out is not a faceless corporation chasing quarterly numbers. It is a California dynasty. When a dynasty starts talking about difficulty in its home state, it raises a larger question. If they feel pressure, what does that say about everyone else who does not have their margins, their loyalty, or their cultural protection? To understand why this moment matters, you have to return to where it started. In 1948, Harry and Esther Snyder opened a small drive-through stand on Francisquito Avenue in Baldwin Park. The promise was simple: fresh food, quality control, no frozen shortcuts, a limited menu built around doing a few things the right way. At the time, fast food was still young, but the Snyders understood something early. Consistency is not a marketing trick. It is a discipline. Harry worked the grill. Esther managed the books. Customers were not just buying a burger. They were buying reliability and a sense that the people behind the counter cared what they served. That small stand did not grow because it was loud. It grew because it was steady. And over time, the red and yellow signs became something California recognized instantly, not as a trend, as a fixture, a place that felt local, even when it expanded. As decades passed, the company did what many businesses refused to do. It stayed private. It stayed family-owned. It never franchised. It never went public. It protected control, even when that meant slower expansion and fewer financial options. The business passed from Harry and Esther to their son, Rich, and later to their granddaughter, Lynsi Snyder. That continuity mattered. It told customers that the brand was not for sale. It told employees that the people at the top were not temporary. And it told California that one of its best-known companies still considered the state its home base. In-N-Out became part of daily life. From Los Angeles freeways to Central Valley towns, the brand became more than a meal. It became a symbol of a California story that still worked. A single idea, a family that held the line, a company that grew without surrendering its identity to outside control. That is why talk of relocation feels less like strategy and more like a crack in something cultural. Across California, In-N-Out is tied to memory. The original Baldwin Park stand is still standing after 77 years, serving as a landmark for generations who grew up around it. In city after city, the sign does not just mean food, it means familiarity, it means routine, it means a place where families gather without planning. That is part of why this story escalated so fast. California does not treat In-N-Out like a normal company. It treats it like a piece of itself, a brand that feels homegrown in a state that often watches its homegrown successes get bought, reshaped, or moved. And the loyalty is not one-sided. In-N-Out is known for paying above minimum wage and maintaining high employee satisfaction. With 281 of its 418 locations in California, the company supports thousands of jobs and brings major spending into local economies. So when the topic shifts to Tennessee, the reaction is not just corporate curiosity, it becomes personal. Communities hear a question behind the headlines. Are we losing another pillar of what California used to represent? In July 2025, Lynsi Snyder addressed the rumors directly. The message was careful, and it was meant to stop a wildfire. She said In-N-Out is not moving its corporate headquarters out of California. She clarified that the company is opening an Eastern Territory office in Franklin, Tennessee, while the heart of the business remains in Baldwin Park, the original home of the brand. Her framing mattered. She drew a line between where she raises her family and how she views the people of California. She said personal decisions have nothing to do with her appreciation for California customers. But she also acknowledged what many leaders avoid saying publicly. She admitted the challenge. Raising a family is hard. Operating a business is hard. The official line was firm. We are not leaving California. We are not leaving our roots behind. Each location is here to stay. But even a denial can confirm something else. It confirmed that the question is now real enough to require an official response. The company also attached operational details to that reassurance. In-N-Out said it intends to close the Irving office by 2030 and consolidate operations in Baldwin Park, reinforcing that California remains the core. At the same time, the Tennessee expansion is not symbolic. It is physical. It is funded. It is underway. And that is where the tension lives, because when a company says the headquarters is not moving, but builds a major new territory office in another state, people naturally ask what comes next. Even if it is not an exit today, it can look like a hedge against tomorrow. Snyder's statement tried to separate personal life from corporate direction. But in the public mind, leadership choices and company choices are rarely cleanly separated. When the CEO moves, the spotlight follows. When new infrastructure follows, the speculation hardens. So the story became two things at once: a family decision and a strategic expansion. And the public debate became less about what was announced and more about what is being quietly prepared. In Franklin, Tennessee, construction is moving forward on a new Eastern Territory office. The project is described as a $126 million facility set to open in late 2026. It is designed to support the company's growing network of restaurants in the Southeast, including states like Tennessee, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. It is expected to create roughly 200 new jobs in the region. That scale changes the mood. This is not a small satellite desk. This is an investment meant to last. And the timing, paired with the Snyder family relocation, is what fueled so much reaction. Officially, Baldwin Park remains the anchor. The company says California is still the center, but the Tennessee build signals a business reality. Growth is happening outside the state, and it is being supported with new infrastructure, new hiring, and new long-term planning. The Franklin project becomes a symbol, not of abandonment, but of adaptation. And in California, adaptation is often the first stage of departure. The pressures behind this shift are not mysterious. California's economic landscape has tightened for decades, and businesses feel it at every level. The median home price topping $800,000 makes it difficult for workers to live near their jobs. High costs ripple through payroll, utilities, insurance, and rent. New labor laws, including a $20 an hour minimum wage for fast food workers, have increased payroll expenses across the sector. For a company with a large footprint, that change is not theoretical. It becomes a permanent increase in operating cost. Then there is regulation and compliance. During the pandemic, California's strict safety mandates forced restaurants to install barriers and check vaccination status, adding burdens that many owners remember as expensive and unpredictable. Even after restrictions eased, the memory of abrupt rule changes stayed. Compared to that, Tennessee offers no state income tax, lower cost of living, and a regulatory environment many business leaders call more predictable. This is the math behind the emotion. Once the news broke, headlines escalated faster than facts. Major outlets ran stories claiming In-N-Out was relocating its headquarters to Nashville. Others suggested the chain was leaving California entirely. Many reports blurred the distinction between Lynsi Snyder moving her family and the company opening a new office for regional operations. That confusion became its own force. Commentators pulled Snyder's words about family and business difficulty and treated them like a verdict on California. Editorials and talk shows used the story as evidence of a state hostile to employers. The topic expanded from a corporate planning decision into a statewide referendum. And the more it spread, the more pressure it created. Pressure on the company to clarify, pressure on California leaders to respond, pressure on workers and customers who heard the story as a threat to something familiar. This is how business stories turn political. Not because a burger chain wants to be a symbol, but because the state's economic debate is so intense that any iconic brand becomes a proxy battle. Supporters of In-N-Out's approach point to what has not changed. The company still has 281 stores in California, far more than anywhere else. It is still deeply embedded in the state's workforce and consumer culture, and it continues to describe Baldwin Park as the heart of the business. From this view, the Tennessee office is not a retreat. It is logistics. It is support for growth in the Southeast. As the company expands into new states, it needs operations closer to those restaurants. A territory office becomes a practical necessity, not a political statement. Defenders also argue that relocation does not always mean abandonment. They point to the pattern of California-born companies expanding or shifting headquarters while keeping major teams and functions in the state. The example often cited is Tesla's 2021 headquarters move to Texas while maintaining major work in California. So the debate is not simply leave or stay. It becomes something more complex. How does a California company remain competitive while California becomes harder to operate in? Still, the deeper signal remains. When a company built on tradition, privacy, and loyalty acknowledges the strain, it tells you the strain is no longer manageable in silence. If even In-N-Out has to explain its intentions, then the state's business environment has reached a point where symbolism is not enough to calm fears. California has always sold itself as a place where ambition is rewarded. Reinvention is possible. Success is celebrated. But the economic realities now force businesses to weigh identity against sustainability. Leaders must decide what they can absorb and what they cannot. That is not ideology. It is survival planning. In-N-Out is trying to walk a narrow line. It wants to preserve its roots in Baldwin Park. It wants to reassure employees and customers. And it also wants to expand into states where operating costs are lower and growth is easier. If that balance holds, the story ends as adaptation. If it breaks, the story becomes something California has seen too many times, a slow drift away from the center until the center no longer holds. So this is where things stand. In-N-Out says its headquarters remains in California. Its stores remain in California. Its identity remains tied to Baldwin Park. At the same time, the CEO has openly described the personal and business pressures that make California difficult, and the company is committing major resources to Tennessee. That combination is why this moment feels unsettled. It is not an exit announcement. It is not a guarantee. It is a warning that the ground is shifting under even the most iconic names. If you want continued, serious coverage of the economic forces reshaping American states, subscribe to Elizabeth Davis. Comment with your thoughts on what this means for California and for businesses that grew up there. And share this video with anyone watching companies quietly move their future out of the places that built them. Because the real question is not whether In-N-Out leaves tomorrow. The real question is how many signals California can ignore before the departures stop being rumors and become the new normal.